and thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Day, here at Salisbury.
Absolutely.
I just want to get into it and start off. Tell us why you're running for City Council.
Well, Eli, I'm running because as a lifelong resident and born and raised Salisburian, I'm tired of watching old political fights stand in the way of progress. I have spent the majority of my years in this city, and as have my parents, my brother and sister, and my grandparents, and we care a lot about this place. And it's difficult to watch great things not happen simply because politicians can't seem to get along and are more interested in fighting with one another than in articulating a vision and implementing a plan to get us to that vision.
You talk about political fighting, political infighting. We hear about it a lot on the federal level, not as much on the local level, but as you said, it is a problem. What will you do specifically to help with this problem?
It's a great question. And I'll tell you, the reason we don't hear a lot about it on the local level is that in most municipalities and in most communities, and I work with small towns across the Eastern Shore, like Easton and Cambridge and Chestertown, they set aside those differences simply to get things done. And it's not that it's a love fest in those communities, it's just that they recognize that you have to get past personal differences and petty debates and disagreements to get the job done. So what will I do personally? I will work with every individual on the council. I will meet with every individual on the council frequently, face to face, and I will meet with the mayor frequently, face to face. I will do everything I can to reduce any barriers between our ability to work together and the progress that citizens expect from their local government.
So, Jake, tell me about some of your experiences dealing with the environment in the military that you've had that would help you be a good council member.
Sure, happily. As I said, grew up right here in Salisbury. I went to Bennett High School. As a student, 3 friends of mine in my senior class, the class of 2000, passed away. And our community came together, and our Student Government Association led an effort to build a memorial garden to honor those 3 friends of ours. And that was sort of my first experience in community-based design. I was asked to design the memorial garden. So I did, and I participated in the development of that garden, working with people throughout the community, a diverse coalition. So I've brought that experience into my professional life. I studied architecture at the University of Maryland, received a bachelor's degree, studied urban design at Carnegie Mellon University, where I received a master's, and I also received a master's in environmental policy at Oxford University in England. Those 3 educational experiences, combined with my sort of root in community-based design at Bennett, all brought together the effort to want to come back to the Eastern Shore. So I came back to the Eastern Shore and began working for the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. The Eastern Shore Land Conservancy is about a 23-year-old nonprofit conservation group that works from the Dorchester County, Nanticoke River in Dorchester County, all the way up to the Pennsylvania line in Cecil County. And they had been focused for many years on preserving the natural environment and realized that they also needed to work on enhancing the built environment and revitalizing our towns and making great places for people to live and successful economic places, economically vibrant places. So my work in town planning and ultimately in creating the Center for Towns, a component of the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy that I now lead, is the way that I help communities across the shore to make them environmentally sustainable, economically vibrant, and thriving places for people to live, to encourage development around those towns and in those towns, and to discourage sprawl that has chewed up farmland in really what's one of the best preserved agricultural regions in the Northeast United States, being the Delmarva Peninsula. So those experiences obviously are things that I want to bring to Salisbury, and I believe I've done that in some ways through the Wycomico County Natural Resources Conservation Advisory Committee, which I chair, the City Board of Housing Adjustments and Appeals, which I sit on, and the City-County Joint Planning and Zoning Commission, which I sit on. And then lastly, you mentioned my military experience. I've been in the Army for about 4 years. I serve currently as a general's aide de camp in the Maryland Army National Guard, and my training has been in cavalry. I'm a cavalry officer in the Army National Guard, and it's the best job in the world. I love it. I'm not sure City Council can top it, but I do love that job.
And in your answer, you actually touched on a few issues that I had some questions for you about. First of which is revitalization of downtown. It's a major issue that you're running on, something you keep talking about. What are your plans to revitalize the area?
Sure, happy to address that. First of all, it's important to remember that downtown is not just West Main Street. Downtown is a large district where much of the commerce in our community is focused. Many of the professional services provided, architecture, engineering, law, medicine are provided through the downtown district. There's significant housing downtown. There's significant cultural assets, significant physical assets, the river, of course, and the Riverwalk downtown. So it's an incredibly diverse place that's basically the heart and soul of our community, and that's true for most communities. The problem is we've let our heart and soul, we've not taken care of it. And just like our own heart, we've got to keep it up. We've got to get that cardiovascular activity. We've got to run. We've got to exercise, and we haven't worked out our heart and soul enough in Salisbury. So we've let it atrophy. We've let it decay, and it's really unfortunate because the investment that we make in our downtown is a signal to outside investors, and it tells them how much this community cares and how much this community is willing to support itself. And if we're not willing to make those investments, then no one from the outside is going to make them for us. So we can't wait for some saving grace. We can't wait for some angel investor that isn't going to come if we don't make the right steps. So for me, it's all about making the downtown a place where business can succeed, a place where investors can succeed. And that begins by reducing barriers to investment. So that begins by reducing the high cost of land. We have about 90% of the vacant land in downtown Salisbury belongs to the city, and much of it waterfront. And let me tell you, almost no city in America keeps surface parking lots on its waterfront. It's crazy that we still have surface parking lots open on our waterfront. Clearly, that's a great place for revitalization. It's a great place for public open space. It should be any of those things other than surface parking lots. It's environmentally disastrous, and it's economically just crazy. So we have to do that first. Second, we got to reduce the barrier to investment by reducing the cost for connecting to water and sewer. The mayor actually proposed last year a plan that included creating an equivalent dwelling unit bank, so a bank for developers for their connection fees, essentially, to downtown from another project in Salisbury that isn't experiencing a resurgence in development, and shifting those essentially downtown. It's something that I think is a good idea, and it's a simple idea to implement. It's one of the things that I agree with the council minority and the mayor on. But I think there's a lot of other things we can do. First of all, we got to appear open for business. So we have to stop the bickering. We have to be a city government that outside investors are willing to deal with and want to deal with. And we got to create a front door, essentially, to businesses. So we need an economic development officer that's dedicated to revitalization of the city throughout the city. And we need a space, a storefront space downtown that has members of the Planning and Zoning Department, Neighborhood Services and Code Compliance, and Public Works, and even the mayor's office potentially, that have a presence in that office and are there simply to be business friendly, have an open door to investors, to developers, to businesses interested in relocating downtown. So those are just a few of the things. And then there are the long-term goals, connecting downtown to Salisbury University. It's 1.4 miles from the intersection of Route 13 and College to the intersection of 13 and Carroll. So it's 1.4 miles from downtown to Salisbury University. That's a short distance, but none of it's walkable. None of it is pedestrian friendly. None of it is bikeable. And that's an easy thing to fix, and but it'll take a little bit of time. But we've got to create the political will to do that. And in order to get there, we've got to get a council that can work together.
and you just hit on another point that we were getting to. I had the question for you about transportation. Do you have any plans to improve public transportation, particularly for things like connecting SU to downtown?
Sure. I think it begins with bikeability and walkability. That is an underutilized sector of transportation in Salisbury. Majority of commuters in Salisbury are single-car commuters, and the second highest group is people who carpool together. And way down the list is bikers, walkers, and mass transit, public transit, using our shore transit system. So those are sectors of transportation that need to be improved, and I think, again, it begins with bikeability and walkability. I'd like to see significant investment in walkability on Route 13. I'd like to see a median in Route 13. I think we can partner with State Highway, the Maryland Department of Transportation, and their subsidiary State Highway Administration on that. It's something that's been discussed in the past. It's been put into plans, but we'll never get there if we're not working together. And then I also think that the long-term goal for that particular linkage should be having dedicated bus service from Salisbury University to downtown on a regular basis. So I'm talking like once an hour on the hour and once a half hour return on the half hour. And then ultimately transitioning long-term perhaps to a bus rapid transit line, a dedicated lane up Route 13, or even a trolley line up Route 13, back and forth, a light rail essentially. But of course you've got to have a destination. Salisbury University has the critical mass right now, but downtown doesn't. So we've got to get those parking lots developed. Lot 10 is a perfect example. Lot 10 is at the intersection of Route 13 and Route 50 downtown. It's the big open lot where the flea market takes place. It's next to the state government office building. It could easily be redeveloped into a mixed-use development with some open space to keep the activities like the farmers market there, or the flea market, excuse me, but also could incorporate a core of parking, retail on the ground floor, housing above. There's nothing but potential on a piece of land like that, but we've got to take the steps as a city to make it available for development.
And something you touched on earlier in one of your answers was the environment, something that you obviously feel strongly about, something that you taught here at SU about. What do you think needs to be done moving forward when it comes to the Wicomico River?
Sure. I think the first thing we've got to do is get the wastewater treatment plant upgraded. As you may know, the wastewater treatment plant for the city of Salisbury, in the late 90s, we had a redesign proposed. We needed to expand the wastewater treatment plant. The plant was expanded. And ultimately, the design that was implemented was a design that didn't work, frankly. It simply failed. It didn't work. So, there was a lawsuit. We sued the engineering firm that designed it. And the results of that are essentially that we have some money, some financial resources to rebuild, but we have to rebuild the entire plant, or the portions of the plant. We have to re-engineer the plant, essentially. And it's a very expensive proposition. It's the biggest thing we've got on our plate, and financially, and we need to take care of that right now. So as soon as that project's done, the next thing we have looming on the horizon is the watershed implementation plan. And that is an implementation plan mandated by law that the city has responsibility for. Every jurisdiction in the state has responsibility for. And it requires that we reduce our nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, our output of nutrients and sediment into the Wicomico River and into our watershed. So the way that we're going to have to address that implementation plan is, again, through a major investment of financial resources. The estimates right now are very high, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's true for every jurisdiction around the state, but many of them are finding ways to be innovative, working with developers, requiring new environmental site design standards be met, and we can do the same thing here. We can achieve a number of the goals and the benchmarks that are set through simply more frequent street sweeping, cleaning of the sediments and the the substances left behind by our automobiles on pavement. We can achieve many of these goals, many of these benchmarks through requirements for private developers. And these are things that are in line with laws that have already been passed. We simply need to implement them here. The standards that we should set in Salisbury should be the highest standards as far as the environment is concerned. And a great example of us not setting the example as a municipality, our municipal government not setting the example, is maintaining asphalt parking lots on the river's edge. As rain falls and as that stormwater flows off the pavement, it takes the gasoline, it takes everything that comes out of your exhaust pipe, everything that comes off your tires with it into the Wycomico River, and there's little buffer to prevent it from doing so. And the same is true with our Riverwalk. However, our Riverwalk can be designed in its renovation, which is proposed in the upcoming budget, in the upcoming capital improvement plan. With its renovation, with the revitalization of these parking lots downtown, we can be setting the example. The municipal government of the city of Salisbury can be setting the example. Not just Salisbury, greater Salisbury, but our city government can be setting the example rather than being behind the curve as we are today.